Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. I was tasked with doing some basic financial literacy. So let's get started. One of the things that's very important when we talk about our finances is that idea that you have to have a little something set aside for a rainy day. The unexpected, the emergencies, right? So I've actually got a little something, an idea I wanted to throw out this morning. I actually haven't even talked to any of the other financial people or the commissioners about this, but just kind of an idea. So you're kind of like the first to hear of this. So one of the things that there is already for the county kind of a standard, like 90 days is the standard reserve, and that's a minimum. And the idea behind a 90-day reserve is that you would, if we were cut off from all of our sources of revenue coming in, we would still be able to pay our bills for 3 months. Okay, and that's the idea of a 90-day reserve. And that's a minimum standard. Some of the funds of the county actually have more than that, but that's a minimum of what we want. So what if we could supplement those current reserves by leveraging excess finances when something comes in, revenue comes in unexpectedly or comes in a little higher than we were expecting. And then if those excess finances are unencumbered by obligations, that is, they're not earmarked for something specific, and then we could use those, providing an additional sense of security, right? Because that's what that extra money is for, is for that sense of security. And so therefore we would harness those untapped resources. All right. So just kind of summarize that. We could actually create a new fund for this, a supplemental leveraged, unencumbered security harnessing fund. It's actually hoarding, okay? But when we roll this out, the H will stand for harnessing. And if you didn't pick up on the acronym, the slush fund, all right? So most people think the government already has one of these anyway. So we're simply giving a title to the acronym that already exists. All right. If you haven't figured it out by now, I'm pulling your leg. But the reason I did it was because I want to talk about true transparency. I started out by using some financial terminology. I started out by using, maybe some words you weren't quite familiar with. And, we like to use words like accrued and encumbered and those kind of things. And we need to be careful when we do this, because you're not truly transparent unless the information is accessible. And we can put information, we can put all the information out on the website. You can ask for reports. I can give you hundreds of pages of financial information, but I haven't really been transparent unless I put the cookies on the bottom shelf, unless I've given it to you in a way that you can understand it. So we have to make sure that we use basic terminology and we don't use information in order to intimidate people by overcomplicating the message. I tell you what, it's actually one form of intimidation is, the story of the emperor with no clothes, right? So one form of intimidation would be to give information using all of the terminology and all of the accounting speak, so that when I answer your question, you know that I'm really smart, or you think I'm really smart, but you didn't get any information. You haven't processed a real answer, and you sit down and you don't ask any more questions because I've made you feel like you're the only one in the audience that doesn't get it, right? That's what the emperor with no clothes, that's what they did. They made everybody think that, oh, Everybody else sees it, and I'm the only stupid person that thinks he's naked. So I'm just not going to say anything, right? So we got to be careful that we are not trying to intimidate people with our area of expertise. Now, for me, that might be the finances. For you, it's something else. You've got your own area that you're in charge of. But when you come and you present, you got to make sure you're transparent with your information as well. That you bring it to where people can understand it. And this is a mark of a true professional. If you go to the doctor and he uses all of these big words, telling you about these things that are happening in body parts that you didn't even know that you had, and he's using all these big words, you don't understand what the problem is, and he says, all right, now you need to make a decision. Do you want to go the surgery route, or do you want to try and treat this with medication? And you think, well, I don't even know what the problem is. How can I make an informed decision if I don't really understand? Or when you go to the mechanic and he starts using these, big words, these car parts and the exhaust valve and the, whatever, and I have no idea what's going on. But a good mechanic, he'll walk out and he'll show me a part, and he'll say, "See this? Yeah, it's supposed to be round and smooth, but you see these jagged edges, That's grinding, something, and then, that's ripping this thing apart. I can replace just this part, but if you really want to get the job done right, you're going to have to, replace a few more as well, and you're going to have to decide you want to spend $300 today or $600. So that's what a true professional can do. They can bring that down to your level. So when we talk about accounting here, when we talk about the finances here, we want to make it relatable. County has emergency money set aside. Well, hopefully you've got a little emergency money set aside. You understand emergencies in your personal finances. County has travel. Well, you understand. You've got your travel money. You've got your entertainment. You've got vacations. And what's the first thing that has to get cut when things get tight? Well, we go to that fun money or that travel money because that's the one place we can cut back on and see, sometimes the smallest impact immediately. Non-recurring maintenance items. Hopefully when all of your money comes in, you don't have every single dollar in your monthly budget earmarked, because some things don't happen every single month, right? That $800 repair on the car may just happen once a year. So you've got to be having a little bit extra accumulating for those larger items. The county does those types of things. We got to be able to communicate in that in a way that you guys can relate to. You guys save for retirement. There's money saved for later expenses or, debt service, loan payments that the county has to make or whatever. And so we've got to be able to communicate this in a way that makes sense. So you've got personal methods of keeping your money separate. The county does fund accounting. You know this, that the assessor's fund is only to be used for assessment operations. The 911 fund, we cannot take it and build roads with it. That's what the road and bridge money is for. We can't spend money out of one fund that doesn't match the purpose of the fund, right? And so you have the same in your personal finances. You can't go and take the money that is for your mortgage payment. You can't go pay your utility bill with that. You've got to be able to keep those things separate. Some people do this with different bank accounts. Maybe you've got a checking account, then you've got another account you keep over here. It's a savings account. And some people keep multiple bank accounts to try and keep all of their finances separate. That's one way that you can do it. Other people, this was kind of an old thing, but maybe some people still do this, the envelope method. You withdraw your entire paycheck and you put your entertainment money in one envelope and your grocery money in another envelope and so forth. And then when that money's gone, well, you don't do any more of whatever the label is on that envelope until your next paycheck. Some people might get complicated, keep it on a spreadsheet, like personally is what I would do. And then other people just kind of keep track in their head. You know about how much your utilities is. You know what the mortgage is. You know about what it costs you a week or a month in groceries. So some people keep track of those things. You can do that with your personal finances to an extent, but the county's finances are way more complicated. So it's got to be tracked at a much more complicated level. So the county does what's called fund accounting, right? We got different funds. We account for different funds with pooled cash management. That is, all the money is managed together in one pot, but we keep track of how much each fund is worth. So here's your personal example. You may have some cash in your wallet. You might have a checking account. You might have a savings account. And altogether, that equals $1,000 there, as you can see on the left side of the screen. But you know that you need this much for groceries and this much for insurance and utilities and savings. And so the total is $1,000. Now, you might notice in this example that my savings account at the bank is only $200. But in my mind, in my fund, I'm supposed to have $250 in there. I haven't yet taken the cash out of my wallet or transferred the money from the checking account into the savings account. But I know that that money is to be saved. It's not to be spent in some other category. So it doesn't really matter whether the cash is in the wallet or in the checking account or whatever. What matters is that these are my funds, and this is where the money needs to go. So the county is pretty much the same. We just have a whole lot more accounts and we have a whole lot more funds. Here, cash on hand is $7,000. Typically, that's about how much money we've got in the office. And some people, they think, well, Justin, do you really want to tell people how much money is in there? You know, is that a bad idea? No, most people think we've got 100 times that money sitting down there in the vault. So, no, it's good for people to know there's not as much money there as you think in cash. We've got checking account when we're paying the bills, when we're paying payroll, all of that money flows out of the regular checking account. And then we have all the investment accounts. We won't get into itemizing those, but you add them all together. And you can see right now, maybe we're sitting on about $160 million. And if you took all the funds, the general fund, road and bridge, assessment, 911, senior fund, all of these different funds, well, they would come also to that same $160 million. Of course, I had to kind of truncate that list there because there's actually about 50 funds that the county has that we have to keep track of. And we keep track of this every single transaction, whether it's expense or revenue, a transfer. We keep track of what fund that money is in, regardless of where the actual money sits on the other side of the ledger. We keep track of that with a balance of debits and credits. So when money gets spent out of the checking account, if we cut checks, we've accounted for exactly which funds. So if $100,000 goes out of the checking account to cover expenses, we know that how much came out of each fund, and that balance is always maintained. At any time, we could run that balance and show that the amount of money and all of our cash and investments and everything, all of our different accounts, equals all the different funds that the county has. So here are some other things that sometimes are difficult for us to understand because you guys don't necessarily get to see, all of the accounting and things that happened in the background. And so one thing that is difficult for us to understand that we've got our fund balances. We tell you how much is in the general fund or the road and bridge fund, and that includes the, kind of the emergency money as well, the money set aside for the contingencies and the emergencies and stuff. But then we also have these expense and revenue lines. And what we need to understand is these are only categories. These are not actual money. So when you look at your budget and you say, well, I've got, $10,000 in this account, a lot of times people imagine like there's a shoebox in the safe in my vault and it says circuit clerk, office equipment, and there's $10,000 sitting in that shoebox. You get the idea that that's money. It's really not. Think of your personal finances again. If in January you wanted to pay your mortgage or your rent for the whole year, and your utilities paid up for the whole year, and your cell phone bill for the whole year, you probably couldn't do that because your annual expenses can only be met if your income is coming in, right? Because you also plan on getting a paycheck from the county. So your expenses, that the money to pay all of your expenses for the year only exists as long as the revenue is coming in. So when we look at our budgets for the whole year, and we look at how much money, well, if everybody tried to spend all of their budget at the beginning of the year, we would run out of money because that budget is based on also the revenues that we plan to come in to cover those expenses at the same time. So you got to think about when you look at those are categories that allow us to look back and understand where the money went. Because if I say, well, we spent $1 million from the general fund, well, it's just gone. What did we spend it on? Well, that's what those expense lines are for, to show us that, well, the circuit clerk spent this much on training, and the assessor spent this much on pens and paper and so forth. So that's the purpose of the revenue and expenditure lines that belong in that fund. They track those things, but they don't represent money that already exists. It's only if the revenue only comes in. The expenses can only be paid if the revenue comes in at the same time. Like I said, the reserves is the goal there is about 90 days. The goal is that if the revenue stopped coming in, we would be able to go about 90 days to cover the expenses. Okay, so yeah, we already talked about that. All right, so those are some of the financial basics of the county's finances and what our goals are. We may not always do a good job when we try and relate those to you, but that's transparency. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Is we're supposed to be putting this information in such a way that you can absorb it. And I don't know, maybe I was too complicated this morning or too simple, too basic. I don't know. But our goal is to always make it relatable, make it real to you. So I've got about 10 minutes left. And so I threw another little thing in here. We're going to just totally switch gears here. The great game is likes to encourage us to turn our operations into a game, because everybody likes to win, to turn what we do and make it fun, make it competitive, not so that, it's not game like it's not serious. That's not what the great game is about. It's about people getting motivated to want to win. So in my office, I proposed this new game to my staff because I saw a problem and I wanted to try and fix it. But I want to try to fix it in a fun way. And Angie's always on me about creating these mini games, right? And I didn't do a good, she had a challenge earlier in the year and I didn't meet that challenge. But eventually I got one together. And so I'm going to show you this. I kind of did it in the form of a resolution, kind of like the commission likes to do these resolutions. So I said, whereas the treasurer, when assisting in the performance of office duties, desires to conform to principles of consistency followed by all other staff. What that means is that when my staff processes a transaction, I don't want to be the kind of boss that when they're gone, I can't do the same thing to help out. And so I want to be able to, make a receipt if I absolutely have to, or do their work if I absolutely have to. And so what I want to do is I want to be consistent, and I want to, they own their jobs. They create their own systems. They do a very good job at their jobs. And so I want to be able to just kind of step in and pinch hit and be able to do something for them. I want to do it like they do it. See, did I go to, okay. Yeah. But whereas heretofore, staff is often too kind and too timid to bring violations to the attention of the treasurer. Now, what this means is that as an employee, as a supervisor, right, it is our job to motivate the people around us and help them to be better. And if they're doing something that could be done a little different, more efficiently, a little bit better, a little cleaner, then we show them that. When I worked for Cindy, man, I had that, right? She's always striving for perfection, making things better, right? Well, now that I'm the boss, nobody necessarily comes to me and says, Justin, you didn't do that right. And it's not really their job to do that. They're not really supposed to have to. And whereas coworkers need to not hesitate, but rather enjoy the process of making the treasurer better at all of the duties in the office. So I was trying to think, how do I make this fun? Like it's not their job to come up and confront me and tell me that I did something wrong. But I was finding out, especially when we hired somebody new, and I would go show them how to process a transaction, how to do a certain duty or whatever. And then the other people in the staff who actually know better come along and say, okay, well, after he does that, then we have to fix it like this, and we have to add this, and then we have to move it from that bin to this bin because he really should have filed it over here, right? And I found out that this was happening, but, but they're just too nice to come and tell me, Justin, we kind of have to go behind you because even though we've told you a couple of times in the past where this goes, you never figured it out. And so now for years, we've just been fixing things behind your back, right? So therefore, after all the whereases in your resolution, you have a therefore. Therefore, all employees of the Greene County Treasurer's Office are hereby deputized to issue citations to Treasurer without fear of reprimand or recourse. I gave them all a badge, right? They've all got badges, and they've all been given citation slips, right? And everybody's got their own color. So as you can see, everybody in the office is participating. And yeah, there's lots of participating to be done, right? And so when I get something wrong, they have a simple little form. I need the date and the duty and the details. When was it? What was I doing? And what did I get wrong? And so they write it out on the little slip, and they come into my office where I've got this nail sitting right there, and bam, they issue me a citation for whatever I got wrong. And I read it, and sometimes I want to justify myself, or sometimes I want to argue. But usually, at the end of the day, I really need to be doing things consistent and not making work for other people. So we've got a little bit of a process. There's some guidelines, obviously. It can be issued when the treasurer violates even the smallest of generally accepted office procedures. To qualify as a violation, the procedure must be a consistent, well-established, and general accepted way of performing tasks in this office. If everybody else does it, and they do it consistently this way, and it's always done this way, well then, by golly, I need to learn how to do that too. So those are the guidelines. I can't, it doesn't count if one person comes and they want to, give me a personal preference and somebody else wants to give a personal preference. When everybody's in the office has always agreed that we're gonna do it this way, and we're gonna route the paperwork this way, and these are the steps, then I need to follow that. And so we've got a little court process if we need it. The treasurer, I can challenge these at the weekly staff meeting, and we can discuss the validity, the necessity of the procedure, and the team can decide if the citation stands. All right. So, I mean, if I'm like, hey, you know, wouldn't it be faster to do it this way? You know, maybe talk them all into doing it my way instead, because or whatever. That has not happened yet. So far, all the citations have stood. I haven't talked my way out of any of them, because they were, they were right. I'm not getting the descriptions consistent on the receipts that I write. I'm not putting the right information in the right places, and so forth. Maybe I'll staple something and put it there when they still need to scan it, right? Well, that creates a whole bunch of extra work to undo the staple stuff. You should be paper clipping that. So those are the type of things that I have got to get better at. So we started this game to try and help. All right. Now, you got to be careful about the attitudes. This works in a small office. I don't know if it would work in a big office. But I'm not allowed to have any poor attitudes. There's no hurt feelings, no taking anything personal, right? And there's no reprimands, there's no revenge, right? You can't. There can be absolutely no. There can't be any fear in issuing one of these that somehow I'm going to find a way to get them back, right? And take it out on somebody, but they have an attitude that they have to watch as well, because it'd be like, I issued him 5 citations on the same thing. Why isn't he getting it? No, it's supposed to be fun. Okay. It may take me a while to learn. So there has to be infinite forgiveness as long as it's going to be a game. Okay. But this was the only way that I could remember this stuff. This is the only way that I could find for us to accomplish the objectives of getting things a little bit more uniform in the office, because I found that I was usually the problem. All right. So the game, we got to have an acronym. The game has to have a name. So these citations are an employee notice of unnecessary failure on behalf of the treasurer, because, by golly, enough is enough, right? So anyway, that's it. I'm done. Thank you for coming this morning.